Welcome to the rest of my life. I'm Lance Ash, and this is a second attempt at recording this episode. About an hour ago, I recorded this rather clumsily. I had originally planned on calling in sick, and I went out to get some gas for the lawnmower and decided to record the show then. But it was all choppy, and when I got back, I decided, well, I better double check how many hours of sick leave I have left, and I don't really have that many left, so I decided, it'd be best to go in to work. So, we're going to re-record this. This time it's going to be nice and smooth and rehearsed. Alright, well, first thing to discuss is CDs I have in the bag. Alright, what do we got here? We got Slayer, South of Heaven. What's this? Slayer. What the fuck is it? God Hates Us All. Slayer, World Painted Blood. My usual German YouTube shows recorded. Metallica, Master of Puppets. Megadeth. Ooh, there's a live skunk in the road. Ooh, gross. There's a baby with him. There's a little baby with him. Oh my God. Poor little thing. That guy was on the road earlier, and he did the same finger wave at me earlier, too. Bizarre. Some people like to walk on the road. Megadeth, Rust in Peace. What's this? Ooh, the new Rammstein album. Rolling Stones' Dirty Work, the 1986 record. I had this on cassette when it came out. And Rammstein's next to most recent record, the self-titled one. Probably my favorite. Alright, now, follow-up to last week's depressing story about my deleting all that shit off the computer by accident. Out of ignorance is a better way to do it, but a better way to put it. My wife was setting up reconfiguring our sign-in procedure to the computer so that when I sign, or when I don't know what you would call it. You're already signed. Everybody's already signed in at once. Well, the two of us are already signed in at once, but you pick an account. So it says, who is using Chrome? And there's her icon and mine. It's funny, I can't really think what her icon is at the moment. Mine is my logo for my company that owns my copyrights. Anyway, so she's doing this, she's setting this up, and she found another account, just some sort of, I don't know, unnamed account on there. And it had all the backup, it had all the data, all the bookmarks, everything. So everything turned out okay. Hooray! All that heartache for nothing. Anyway, set off a week of pain. My nose is all messed up. Don't you hate it when there's tiny irregularities in the interior of your nostril? You're trying to fix everything, and it's just hard to do. One day nanobots will be able to fly in there and fix everything. Fly into your brain and make you conform. We are watching Fox. My goddamn list. Okay, here we go. Alright. Topics. Alright. This is two topics that are going to flow together. Alright. Back in the late 80s, Mr. T was riding high. He was a national phenomenon. So much so that he had a serial. I believe he had a Saturday morning cartoon. I think. Anyway, he also had a doll. Oh, there's a cop coming up here with his lights on. What the hell is he doing? he's outside of Oglethorpe County. Anyway, all right. Anyway, so there was a TV commercial for the doll, right? And the TV commercial had a jingle. And my cousin and I thought it was funny. And the jingle went like this. Mr. T, he's got legs that move and he's 12 inches high. He's got a bunch of chains and a real cool haircut and a mean look in his eye. All right. Now, fall of 87, my two best friends had gone off to boot camp in preparation for joining the Navy Reserve. So basically, my first year at college, it was really depressing because I had no friends, and I wound up hanging out with my younger cousin who was still in high school. I would go to school, I would go to classes in the morning, and then I'd mess around until he got off the school bus every day and pick him up, and we'd go out for a couple of hours. And wound up meeting some of his friends who were all delinquents, and they got me into all kinds of mischief. But anyway, I'm going to skip that for a second. One day, my cousin and I were riding down Atlanta Highway going out of town, and I remember exactly where it was. We're going down the hill towards the Kmart that used to be on the right as you're leaving town. And I had a 2-liter bottle of soda. I think it was orange flavored soda. And I'm trying to drive while tilting this thing up in the air and drinking out of it and looking around the side of the bottle at the road. And he started singing, my cousin's sitting beside me, and he started singing the Mr. T song. And I started laughing, and I spewed orange soda all over the windshield, all over the steering wheel, everywhere. It was so funny. And all he had to do was go, Mr. T! It's got legs that move. Oh my God. Anyway, as I was saying, my cousin and I got into a good bit of delinquency, okay? I'm a college student, and I've just discovered shoplifting, right? So I became obsessed with shoplifting. I had to go get a bunch of stuff every day from somewhere. Well, eventually, of course, I got busted. So it was a big stink. Nothing came of it, really. I got a year's probation. But the main punishment was that I was in the doghouse with my parents. So to make them happy, I decided I would start going back to church. And my dad had told me, and you're going back to church. So I decided I would start going to the church that one of my friends that was in the Navy had been going to, which was this, I think they called it a charismatic church. Tiny little church in the upstairs of a yogurt shop, frozen yogurt place. And so I can't remember. But the first night I went, there was this, they were having when the yogurt place wasn't open, like on Sunday evenings or something, they were allowed to use the downstairs for like study groups and stuff. And I was standing outside looking in, debating going in, right? And there was this guy who had this mean look on his face. He looked exactly like one of the Sales brothers that used to play with David Bowie. And I think the bass player. Anyway, this guy wound up becoming a friend of mine. And so the point is, I started going to this church. And a tiny little church, maybe 30 people, maybe 40. And it's one of these situations where, without meaning to, you become friends with people, and you become really good friends with people. When I first started going there was a guy who was the youth director and music director at the same time. Later became the pastor. And he and I became good friends, and I became close with his whole family, his wife and his kids and everything. I used to babysit his kids sometimes. And so my two friends left for the Navy Reserve at the end of the summer of '87. Early December of '87, I got busted. Started going to that church. Went there for about a year. February of '89, I had surgery. Transsphenoidal surgery to remove a tumor on my pituitary gland. This is the first surgery I had of that kind. 9 years later, I had the same surgery again. Same thing. But I remember went to night services the night before the surgery, and there was a big to-do. Lance is going to have surgery tomorrow. And we prophesy that the surgery won't take place. They'll miraculously check him one more time and find the tumor has disappeared. Well, that didn't happen. Had the surgery, was in the hospital for a whole week, went back to church Sunday morning. Nobody said a word to me. Nobody said a word about the surgery, nothing. Meanwhile, I had met this girl, later became a girlfriend of mine, and started hanging out with her. The whole situation changed. Stopped going to church. And the guy who I'd initially thought was mean looking called me up. Notice you haven't been going to church in a while. What's up? I'm like, well, the surgery kind of took the stuffing out of me and disillusioned me and everything. I thought I was going to be healed. But you were healed. What do you mean? The surgery, that was the healing. Yep. Well, that was the end of that. And it's kind of like when you work somewhere for a while and you get to know people, and then you don't work there anymore, and it's another group of people that you'll never see again. When I worked at UGA the second time, I worked there. I knew everybody. I was, one of the beloved characters in the place. And I got the job at the post office, and so I'm going to be quitting the university, and it's my last day. So about 10-15 minutes before it's quitting time, I went upstairs and hid, and then just slipped out without saying goodbye to anybody. And just, couldn't take it, couldn't bear it. Probably my last day at the post office, I'll do the same thing. But I wish I could get the whole chronology of my time at that church correct. There were people going to that church who were convinced that it was going to become a big church one day. I don't know why they thought this, and I don't understand the mentality behind, we're going to be the founders of this big new church, and it will be a means for us to make business contacts down the road. We'll become movers and shakers in the community because we have this social outlet way to make contacts. There was a whole, I don't know if you've ever heard of, what was the name of it? Full Gospel Businessmen's something or another. It's really depressing. Anyway, I had been dating this girl at the church for a while, who later fucked one of my friends, by the way. He told me she was confused why you never had sex with her. She would have fucked you. But anyway, she was a foster kid for one of the guys at the church, and he was like, I don't know, some sort of building contractor guy, construction contractor guy, wanted to expand his business. The church had obtained some chunk of land that they were planning on building a big building on, to, you know, to be the final home of the church. And the guy who was the preacher when I started going there decided it was not, that the church was going nowhere. So he decided to quit and left. And they got this new guy in, and he said, well, the first thing I want to do is we got to get rid of that land, because the land is being held for us in somebody else's name, and that violates a biblical principle. So I want to have a vote on it. Are we going to get rid of the land or not? So I wasn't a full member of the church yet. I wasn't an official member. I couldn't vote. But the girl I was dating was sitting right next to her, and they're having the vote, and she wrote on her little piece of paper, yeah, sell the land or get rid of the land or whatever. And her foster father came over and leaned over and said, show me your ballot. And he looked at it, and he looked at her, and he said, that's not how we vote. And he walked off. And so she started changing the vote. And I said, what are you doing? If that's the way you feel, you vote the way you feel. She goes, no, I have to do what he says. I live at his house. And oh, Lord. So they got rid of the land, and all these people quit because they were pissed off that their intended network of social business contacts was being destroyed. And then, not long after that, the preacher, this new preacher quit. I really don't know what that was all about. My friends came back from boot camp, and we all started drinking together. I'd never drank before, and drinking and hanging out with girls became much more important than going to church. Oh dear. Okay, I have another topic really quick to go over. This is how I discovered Doctor Who. When I was a kid, we used to go on these long family trips, and places like Stuckey's, that's sort of a truck stop type place, used to sell bagged comics, 3 comic books to a bag. And my mother would buy stuff like that for me, that and activity books for my sister and me for long trips so we could have something to do in the backseat of the car. And she bought me this bag of comics one day, and there was a Marvel Premiere issue in there featuring Doctor Who, featuring the Tom Baker iteration of Doctor Who, the Doctor. And I'd never heard of him before. I'd never heard of the show, anything. And so I read this thing, and I was like, this is really cool. Well, in reading it, in the back, there was the letters page. And one of the letters was like, oh, it's so nice to see that you're doing Doctor Who. Used to watch it on TV here at channel so-and-so here in New York. It's like, oh, it was a TV show. Okay. And that was in the back of my head. A year or two later, 2 or 3 years later, whatever it was, one Saturday night, late at night, I saw on the local PBS station, there it was, Tom Baker, episode Robot. And it was the scene where he and the robot are chasing each other around in that room. And it's like, this is the damn show. So I started watching it. Started spending part of my tiny little bit of money on a VHS tape every couple of weeks and recording them and watching them over and over obsessively. My dad started watching them with me. We watched all the Tom Bakers, all the Peter Davisons, and maybe 1 or 2 of the Colin Bakers. I got a couple of posters, and I got a book, the 20th anniversary book. Yeah, I became a real obsessive. The new revival, not so much. It's all right. All right, well, I guess that's about it for this episode. This retake of the episode is much better than the earlier version. All right, well, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.